new day. Got some fuel. And about to go ahead and finish up this last delivery. And I had this guy come up to my truck. It's my buddy Steven. He's one of the dudes. One of the dudes that keeps me sane out here on the road. Usually if I'm not talking to him or he gets sick of me, then I'm usually on the phone with Travis. But this is a guy, we've been friends what? A year, going on a year and a half now? Yeah. We met, he was a trainer before, and when I came to be a trainer, he was taking a refresher course. And ever since then, we talk on the phone every day. We're talking on the phone more than you. But yeah, we're about to go ahead and wrap up this trip, and then I'll see y'all in Georgia. All right, y'all. Finished getting this washout done, and I am going to tell y'all about the last couple of days, basically with one load. So
turn left and turn right.
Today's Saturday now, and that load was, I picked that load up. Obviously I'm on a totally different load now, but I picked that load up Wednesday evening. I got planned on it, or I picked it off the low choice program. So what I've done, or what happened was, I delivered to a previous customer literally across the street from where I was picking up that load from. And I'm not gonna jump out in front of this dude. So what I did was, you know, I was able to deliver that load, drop and hook. I picked this load off load choice. Was also a drop and hook. Nope. It was also a drop and hook, and it was across the street, and those customers share trailers sometimes. So I asked the guard when I dropped that load off on Wednesday night, or Wednesday evening, you know, I'm like, hey, I got another load picking up from next door. You know, I understand that you guys share trailers. You know, can I just go ahead and bobtail over there? And she said, you know, that was fine. So I bobtailed over there. I got to that customer about 8 p.m. Now, the load that I picked was going 278 miles. It's paying $700. Going to North Carolina. Come on, car. And so I picked that load. One, I know it had extra time on it. But, oh man, that sucks. Even though it did have extra time on it, let's see. So that load was going 268 miles for $700. It was picking up Wednesday morning at 2:30 in the morning for a drop and hook, and it delivered in North Carolina about 9 a.m. So obviously it's a ton of time. The rate per mile was good, you know, basically for the amount of time that I had to be on that load. The reason why I chose that load is where I was picking up from is not necessarily too far away from my house. So my plan was to pick up that load, go park the truck and trailer. That way, because I had an appointment set with the TSA to go get my fingerprints done, so that way I could get my hazmat completed. So that way I can get my hazmat endorsement. You know, for the state of Georgia doesn't recognize TWIC cards. So I had to get my fingerprints done through the TSA. So I had an appointment to go get all that stuff done. And that's the reason why I picked the load. That way I could pick that load up, park my truck, and, you know, go handle all that, you know, using Thursday. And that way I can, you know, go ahead and deliver the load on time on Friday. Not a big deal for me. You know, that's the reason why I sacrificed the day. So I get to that place about 8 p.m., about 8:02, 8:05, and I check in. You know, obviously I know I'm 6 hours early. I didn't really have super high hopes, but sometimes you get lucky. So I check in, I'm like, hey, I'm here for the load. a drop and hook load. I just delivered next door. I showed them my paperwork, showed them my bills, showing that I just dropped a trailer off over there. Like I got permission from the guard shack over there to bobtail. I contacted Prime and let Prime know, like, hey, guard says okay to bobtail to 01. I just want to confirm, and they said it was okay too. So I did, you know, and I let them know that, you know. So when I got there, I'm like, hey, I'm bobtail, deliver next door, and they're like, okay, well, that, you know, we have a Prime trailer on the yard we're able to load you with, you know, we can go and get that trailer. And I was like, no, I'm like, hey, you know, since I know this trailer isn't ready, you know, I don't mind, you know, going back to go get an empty trailer, or if you guys haven't started loading it, I can go get that trailer. You guys can live load me. Either way you guys want to work it out, it's completely fine with me. And he's like, no, it's okay. You know, we'll go ahead. You know, there's a trailer already on the yard. There's one sitting in the door and one sitting on the yard. You know, we'll go ahead and load one of those trailers. So go ahead and park with the rest of the trucks, and we'll call you, or we'll come and wake you up when your load is ready. And I'm like, okay, that's fine with me. So I went and parked. You know, luckily for me, this is going to be useless because I'm not going that way. It was fine with me because I was able to, you know, it was raid night for, you know, World of Warcraft for me and my friends that I play World of Warcraft with. So I really didn't mind having to wait at all because, you know, I obviously had something to do. So I was able to do that. You know, I stayed up until about 12:30. You know, just about the time for my load to be ready. And so I waited for a while. I kind of got sleepy. I'm like, okay, well, let me just take a small nap just in case they push a little bit past 2:30. And, you know, that way I won't be tired just driving that last, you know, 15-20 miles getting to, you know, basically going home. So I lay down to, you know, take a nap because, you know, it was almost 2:30, time for me to pick up that load. So I happened to wake up at 9:45 in the morning, and I'm like, you know, no missed calls. I'm a light sleeper. No one came and woke me up. So I'm like, I wonder what's going on. So, you know, I threw my clothes back on, threw my shoes on, walked back up to the guard shack, and I'm like, hey, I was supposed to pick up a drop and hook trailer. Somebody was supposed to come pick, you know, somebody was supposed to call me or somebody come get me when my trailer is ready. You know, I just want to figure out, is the load ready? You know, what happened, stuff like that. And so I gave them my pickup number, and they're like, oh, well, we see that you've been sitting here, but that load never got loaded. And I'm like, what do you mean? And he's like, well, sir, so now I have to be careful of you because you
Continue
parked
on route.
in the way. So, yeah, so I wonder if he saw my camera, so he was looking at me. Anyway, so that load never got loaded, and I'm like, you know, well, why didn't it get loaded? You know, I've been sitting here waiting for it, and you know, I let the guys know at night that, you know, if it needed to be live loaded, I'm okay with that. And they're like, well, we don't know why it didn't get loaded, but you know, let me go ahead and call back to the dock manager. And so they called back to the dock manager, and you know, figured out they don't know why it never got loaded. And so I'm like, okay, well, what is the plan now? Because you know, basically my plans for going home were ruined. And I'm like, okay, you know, what are we gonna do? They're like, well, there's a trailer sitting on the yard. You know, can you just go hook up to it back in door one? We'll put you straight in the door, and, you know, and get you rolling. And I'm like, okay, that's fine. Sure, why not? But just curiously, if there was already a trailer sitting here, and I see the yard guy driving right in front of us, and I'm like, why? What is the reason it didn't get loaded at all? You know, for me to be able to pick this load up on time. They're like, man, we don't know, to be honest. And I'm like, okay, whatever. So I picked that trailer up, put it in the door. By this time it's like 10:30, 10:15, 10:30. And I'm like, okay, you know, they put me straight in the door. They say, you know, they're gonna load my trailer basically, and then I'll go ahead and I'll see if I can salvage some time. That way I can still go to TSA and get my fingerprints done. So I sat there from 10:30 up until about 6:30. I did a whole bunch of stuff on the truck. So 6:30 p.m. they never touched my trailer, and I'm like, what the heck? So I get out, go to the shipping office. I'm like, hey, and they're like, hey, are you door like 13 or something? I'm like, no, I'm door 1. She's like, oh, I don't have any paperwork for door 1. I was like, well, yeah, I know. I've been sitting there since 10:30 waiting to get loaded. You guys never started loading my trailer. I'm trying to figure out what's going on. And she asked me what my pickup number was, and I gave it to her. And she was like, oh, well, I see that you're late. And I'm like, well, yeah, this load was supposed to be a preloaded trailer for a 2 o'clock in the morning pickup. And she's like, well, that's not what it says here. It says that you checked in at 10 a.m. this morning for a live load. I'm like, well, I understand what it says. However, this load was billed as a drop and hook trailer. I don't know why it didn't get loaded with you guys at 2 o'clock in the morning on time. However, your dock manager told me that I needed to pick up the trailer that was already sitting here and for you guys to load that trailer. Now here we are 8 hours later and you guys haven't started loading my trailer. So I'm trying to figure out what's going on. And she's like, well, I don't know what's going on, but right now we're in the middle of shift change, so we won't even be able to start loading you until 8 p.m. And I'm like, I have to continue sitting. So at this point, I'm basically about to be there for 24 hours. I'm like, so I have to continue sitting for a load that was supposed to have been ready? She's like, well, it's kind of up to you. And I'm like, okay. So obviously I leave, go back to my truck. I call Prime, I let them know what's going on. Hey, another Prime truck. I call and let them know what's going on. And they're like, just make sure you stamp the detention. And, we'll get it billed out. I'm like, okay. So I sit and I wait. And finally I get sleepy. So from 8 o'clock when they actually started loading my trailer, so they actually did get me first in the door, because that's what she said. She was like, as soon as 8 o'clock comes, dock manager says you're the first to get loaded. So 8:02, I feel them in my trailer. I'm like, fantastic. So I stayed up from 8:02 to 1 a.m. because they just kept going in and out of the trailer intermittently to load the trailer. And I'm like, okay, it's now 1 o'clock in the morning. If I don't leave within the next 2 hours, 2.5 hours, I'm going to be late for my 9 a.m. delivery in North Carolina. So oh, thanks for moving. I need to get over. So I lay down and take a nap because I'm like, at this point, I don't know how long it's going to take, and if they have to reschedule the load, that's not really my fault because the trailer's still not loaded at this point. So I get a phone call. So I lay down for like an hour or so. I get a phone call at about 2:30 in the morning, which is my original appointment time, and they're like, hey, your paperwork, it was my original appointment time for the previous day. So this point is 2:30 in the morning on Friday, the day of my delivery. And so I'm like, okay, paperwork's ready. So I pull the trailer out the door, pull it up to the shipping office, and luckily for me, because they told me that that I was basically late for the pickup, that I was going to be charged a late fee and stuff like that, and I had to speak to the manager. I skipped that part of the story to not make this video super long, but obviously it's going to be super long. But basically when I went inside to go pick up my paperwork, I was already pissed off. I was already going to re-ask for a supervisor, but luckily the person who processed my paperwork and was actually dealing with me was the supervisor. She's like, hey, I was in the office earlier, I didn't want to come outside, it seemed like I was stepping on the young lady from earlier. I heard the whole thing. We build it in our system properly to show the actual time you got here, and we're going to show the actual time that I'm actually giving you your bills instead of the time we finished loading the trailer, which was 2:54 a.m. And I'm like, perfect. Like, I'm super glad we were able to get that worked out. Just curiously though, why did it take 30 hours to load this trailer? And she's like, I honestly don't know, but the only thing I know is we were short product, so we were trying to make up for product. We were also waiting to process inbound load trucks because your product was sitting on those trucks. I'm like, so basically my product was held up, is what you're saying. She's like, yeah, basically, and we're still not able to give you a full loaded trailer. So we basically gave you half of your load, and that's basically what we're gonna have to send you with. I'm like, okay, that's fine. You know, that part's not really a thing for me. I'm just paid to haul the load. She's like, yeah, I know. So I get everything processed out, you know, get the load going. Now, at that point, I missed everything I had to do with the TSA. So I had to reschedule all that. So basically, I had to drive from that pickup location directly to the drop location, which was a live unload, which is, again, not a big deal. But I had to basically drive it straight there. I barely had time to stop and get fuel. So I stopped and topped off the truck for the weekend. And by the time I got to the delivery, I had to drive all night. And by the time I got to the delivery, I was 20 minutes before my appointment time. So it was 8:30 in the morning, or 8:40 in the morning. So I was able to get there on time, luckily. But man, I just had to freaking sit for 30 hours, and I didn't really understand why. But you know, it comes with trucking. As a lot of people say, that's trucking. You know, Loud Enough to Be Trucking Transportation says that all the time. It's just a part of trucking. But I just wanted to come and share that story. I'm going to go ahead and finish up these last 67 miles. Yeah.
Continue on route.
So I'm going to go ahead and finish up these last 67 miles. Yeah, sorry. I lost my train of thought. I'm going to finish up these miles to get to my next pickup. I am going to go ahead and start recording my next video. I wonder what's going on over there. I'm going to start recording my next video. Once I get there, I just know I haven't uploaded a video in about 2 days. So it's about time for me to go ahead and get a video out to you guys. So like I always say, if you're thinking, you might as well do it logically. I will catch you guys on the next one. Y'all be safe, and I'll see you next time. Peace.